Let's look for some other areas in this concept art that are comprised of primitive shapes. The front panels could be represented as flattened cubes, some of which have rounded corners, and the panel locks are just cylinders. Let's create one of the panels first by clicking on the cube shelf icon or choosing Create Polygon Primitives Cube. We'll move the cube into position from the front and side views, then adjust the scale so it reads as a thin panel. I'll repeat these steps for the second panel and for the frame that surrounds each panel. Again, for each panel, I'll create a cube, then scale and translate the cube into the correct position by aligning it with my reference images. We'll want to periodically inspect our art from the perspective view just to make sure that everything is coming together as planned. We can hide and display object shading by pressing either the number 4 key or the number 5 key on the keyboard. 4 switches to wireframe display, 5 switches to shaded display. We'll need to add more detail to these shapes in order to round the corners, and one of the easiest ways to do this is to make use of Maya's Bevel tool. The Bevel tool inserts additional edges around an existing edge to soften crisp corners. I'd like to round the corners of this panel from the front view, so I'll first need to select the 4 corner edges along the thinner faces of the cube. To select these edges, I'll right-click over a cube and choose Edge, then hold down the Shift button and click on all the necessary edges one at a time to create the selection. With these corner edges active, I'll add the bevels by choosing Edit Mesh Bevel. Just one additional edge segment is added by default, so if I want more rounded corners, I'll need to adjust the number of segments. And this can be done by selecting the Segments attribute either from the channel box or from the Bevel pop-up window, then middle mouse dragging horizontally to modify the segment's value. 4 segments is probably an appropriate number for this model. I can also adjust the size of the bevel by modifying the Fraction attribute, again by middle mouse dragging or by entering a number from the keypad. I'll add bevels to the additional panels as needed to match the concept art, again by selecting the appropriate edges, choosing Edit Mesh Bevel, and adjusting the segments and fraction attributes as needed to achieve the correct level of detail and roundness. The panel locks can be represented using just a couple basic cylinders. I'll click on the cylinder shelf icon to create the first lock and use the Move, Rotate, and Scale tools to move the lock into position. Then I'll repeat these steps to create and position the second lock. We can ensure that both locks are perfectly aligned in the x-axis by modifying the x translation values so that they match exactly. We'll model the coin return slots by simply creating a couple of square frames. An easy way to tackle these elements is by creating modified torus primitives. Toruses are rounded donut shapes that can also be created from the Shelf button or Polygon Primitives menu. And like the other polygon primitives we've worked with, the shape can be adjusted by editing attributes in the channel box. If we create a torus and reduce the subdivision axis value to 4, we'll end up with a square frame. We can also adjust the subdivision height value so that the frame feels more angular and modify the section radius value to adjust the frame thickness. I'll rotate the torus 90 degrees in the x-axis and 45 degrees in the z-axis to achieve the proper orientation. Then I'll adjust its position and uniformly scale the torus to the correct size. I'll just create one coin return slot for now and talk about ways to duplicate geometry a little later. In the next video, we'll look at a couple ways to edit primitive objects and achieve more complex shapes.